All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's jump right into it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about this chart that we have here in front of us. There's uh, a range of different species and diets according to species, one being the carnivore, second being the omnivore, third being the herbivore, fourth being the frugivorous great ape or chimpanzee, and fifth being the human. And this video is meant to be as constructive as possible. I think it's important that we not just believe certain information for face value. So in this video, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into some of the physiological attributes that we see here on this chart. And so I'm just going to begin by quickly going over the information that's listed on the chart. And then as we go along in the video, I'm going to be sharing alternative perspectives or alternative information in relation to what's presented here on this chart. Once again, I think it's very important that we not take this for face value because and not just in this in particular, but when we take information to heart without, further investigation, we tend to develop dogmatic ideologies that can be very damaging to both our physiological and psychological health. So here we go, guys. Let's get started. So humans, frugivores, are designed to eat fruits, vegetables, and nuts. We both, walk upright, while chimps and great apes walk on four paws / upright. Similar dental, as it says. They don't have the ability to shear. They both chew their food. Alkaline saliva. It says both the chimp and the human have alkaline urine. I'll be addressing this. I'll also be addressing the jaw structure in the next slides. I'm going to be addressing the inability to secrete uricase, whereas, say, like the carnivore has the ability to secrete uricase. It says both the great ape and the human have weak hydrochloric acid, yet the carnivore and omnivore secrete strong hydrochloric acid. It says the carnivore does not require fiber to stimulate peristalsis. That means to have a bowel movement, whereas both the great ape and the human require fiber to stimulate peristalsis. It says here that the human, the chimp, both lack the ability to digest large amounts of cholesterol and fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A, whereas the carnivore can metabolize large amounts of cholesterol and vitamin A, or just fat-soluble vitamins in general. This one I find jumps right out at me as being a bit off, and that's that the intestinal length of the human is 9 times the overall body length. Same in the chimpanzee, and then in the carnivore species, they're 1.5 to 3 times the body length, and in the omnivore, about 3 times the body length. So this is quite literally saying that our intestinal tract is 9 times the length of our body. And then it also goes on to say that the great apes or chimps do not have the ability to metabolize cellulose, and humans do not have the ability to metabolize cellulose as well. Cellulose is found in plant foods. Cellulose is what we also call indigestible fiber. And so now we're going to go on, and I'm going to present some slides with alternative information to the information that's been presented in this chart. Here we go. All right, in our first slide here, we've got the human digestive system, often referred to as the GI tract. The human digestive tract is approximately 7 to 9 meters long. And for those of you that don't know meters, that's roughly 25 to 30 feet. And, so I'm 6'5", but let's just round it off. Let's say I'm 6 foot tall. What would 9 times the length of a 6 foot tall person be? That's 54 feet long. That's substantially different than 25 to 30 feet. If I actually do more an appropriate math, it's closer to 4 to 5 times the length of of our overall height. And so that right there, I mean, just jumped out at me as something that just didn't seem right to begin with, but when we take a little bit, a deeper look into this, it's drastically different. Just take a look on Google. If you don't believe me, I mean, multiple websites, textbooks show that, the average length of the total GI tract is 7 to 9 meters long. All right, and here we have a depiction of the chimp's dental structure on the left, the humans on the right. In the chart that we had originally looked at, it had said that there, almost identical similarities between the chimp and the human. I mean, here I just wanted to show you guys that there are clear differences, and the caption in that graph I think is a little bit misleading because their dental structure looked more similar than it actually is. But rather than list out some information to make it seem like they're super similar, I just wanted to show you guys an actual picture of the structure itself. And here we have a caption showing urine pH in the graph. In the beginning of the video, it said our urine should be alkaline as well as the chimp's urine should be alkaline. This is just not the case if we look at pretty much all other sources of information. On average, our urine is actually acidic at a pH of 6.0, but there is actually a range, and it can range from 4.5 to 8, so 4.5 being acidic, and then 8 being alkaline. So actually, it can be acid, base, or alkaline. There's a range. So, if you wake up in the morning and you test your urine pH and it's, 5.5 pH, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It changes throughout the day. Generally, what they found is that it's more acidic in the morning and becomes more alkaline, or heads towards the alkaline range as the day goes on. All right, so I found this one particularly interesting. So in the graph, it said that carnivores produce uricase, and chimps and humans do not. But after reading some information, the inability to produce uricase could have actually been potentially a benefit, but it's unknown. There's not any clear evidence, so I'm not saying it's beneficial that we do, but I am saying that it's unknown as to whether it's harmful or beneficial. But there is some interesting information in here. It does say that uric acid is one of the most important antioxidants in human biological fluids. Uric acid probably has neuroprotective activity. And it also says, the current large increase in uric acid levels in humans in developed countries is mainly influenced by eating habits and lifestyle changes. Generally, chimps and humans have higher uric acid level than other mammals. But as you guys can read up in the abstract, it just talks about some of the history behind this. But I just found this kind of interesting because it may not necessarily be a disadvantage that we don't produce uricase anymore, but it could be to increase the amount of antioxidative biological fluid within the human system. Like I said, evidence is unclear. This is just a little bit of interesting information for you. So according to the chart, carnivores produce strong hydrochloric acid, whereas great apes or chimps and humans produce weak hydrochloric acid, although almost all other sources of information on the internet suggest otherwise. Here is a chart that shows stomach pH or strength of hydrochloric acid according to their species. And here we see humans being a 1.5, almost towards the top, or having the strongest amount of hydrochloric acid, which can go all the way down to 1 pH, which would put us at the top of the chart. Something to take note here, guys, is that most digestive issues or bacterial overgrowth, whether it being candida or SIBO, just fungal issues or like fungal overgrowth within the small intestine, are almost always associated with low stomach acid. And so I don't even see chimps up there either. Here's the next page, and I don't need to read off every single one of these. All right, and here we are a ways farther down the chart. We're getting into the pH range, in the 4s, 5s, 6s, and 7s, and here we begin to see monkeys. It showed, I think the first monkey on the chart is probably like the howler monkey, which has a much lower, much weaker hydrochloric acid strength than the human. And then we get all the way down into more of the herbivores, which tend to be closer to the alkaline range. But yeah, it seems to be that the weaker the hydrochloric acid, the more capable of digesting plant foods. And so I find that interesting that humans are between, 1.5 as low as 1, when the chart depicts us as being a frugivorous species. And like I said, guys, this is just an alternative perspective showing alternative information. All right, and in this next slide, we've got part of an article written by a dude who's observing chimpanzees in nature. According to the chart, chimpanzees or great apes only consume fruits, vegetables, and nuts. And this is just clearly not the case, which has been shown in various regions of the world. It said that although chimpanzees mostly do eat fruit, that they regularly hunt for meat and their main prey are other monkeys. It went on to say that chimps were killing up to half the red colobos population every year, and they have been so effective as predators that they really have knocked down the local population. So it's been shown that chimpanzees hunt and kill animals, they eat eggs on a very regular basis. So to say that they're frugivores and they only need to consume fruit, vegetables, and nuts, once again, I believe to be a bit misleading and doesn't really tell the whole truth. All right, and so in this slide, this was information put together by Jane Goodall herself. One of the regular foods eaten by the chimpanzees are meat and eggs. One of the earliest and most significant discoveries made by Jane Goodall was that chimpanzees hunt for and eat meat. Prior to this, chimpanzees were believed to be vegetarians. However, meat and other animal products only account for 5 to 8% of the chimpanzee's diet. That is only in certain regions. It can be greater depending on the area. Interestingly, successful hunters typically share some portion of their kill with other group members in response to a variety of begging behaviors. So it has been shown that chimpanzees and other great apes as well definitely consume animal foods such as meat and eggs, although here it states only 5 to 8%. In other regions, or depending on the group of chimps or monkeys, the amount of animal foods could increase depending on availability. All right, so here we have a chart that shows gut volume and then gut part by species. And we've got gibbons, simonangs, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and humans, and the size of their stomach, small intestine, cecum, and colon. Stomachs are somewhat relatively similar between, say, the human and the chimpanzee, but it is vastly different when we look at the gut volume of the small intestine of the human compared to all other species, especially the chimpanzee. This could be to extract a greater quantity of high quality foods. there are different theories as to why we have a larger small intestine. I mean, the small intestine is where we absorb most of our nutrients, and so the humans have a greater capacity to absorb nutrients. And then we go to the cecum, where we see incredibly different sizes between the chimpanzee and the human. The cecum is a chamber with bacteria used to ferment cellulose and plant matter to extract nutrients from it. And that's also why the colon is so much larger in these great apes, is because once it's fermented in the cecum, it goes into the colon and it's further broken down by bacteria, and there's a lot more there are a lot more nutrients that are absorbed in the colon of, say, the great ape species than the human. The humans tend to absorb most of their nutrients in the small intestine, where the great apes will also absorb a lot of their nutrients in the colon. These are just some major differences in our digestive physiology and our digestive function as shown on this chart. Like I said, though, just an alternative perspective, and please Google this information and do more research on your own. I'm just trying to share alternative information. All right, in this last slide, it talks a little bit more about the great apes' ability to digest cellulose. In the chart in the beginning, it states that great apes do not have the ability to break down and utilize cellulose for nutrition, but that does not seem to be the case when I go on Google and start looking at alternative sources of information beyond this chart. So it clearly states that the digestive tract of at least a gorilla, and I mean, you can start looking at other forms of great apes as well, it's very similar, that it's geared towards the mastication and digestion and absorption of plants and leaves, including cell wall carbohydrates such as cellulose. These primates have the ability to break down and utilize cellulose as a form of food due to their large colon, where they ferment, and their larger cecum, where they ferment as well. And that is also why the small intestine is so much smaller, because it's not absorbing as much nutrients. So this just once again shows that there are clear differences between that chart and other sources of information on the internet, and that humans are quite a bit different than primates. But like I said, guys, this is just trying to share some alternative information, because when we believe certain things at face value, especially when it comes to diet and information that is so vital to our well-being, it can be very psychologically and physiologically devastating when we follow it for too long a period of time, and we start running into issues such as deficiencies and just other forms of malnourishment. I hope this sheds some light on some information. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, see some more content. Post some questions down below with anything that you would like addressed, or, any videos that you would like me to make for you. Once again, thank you guys so much for your support, and stay tuned for more content.